Hey folks, it's Mark Kowaleski from markkowaleski.com, where I teach you how to live a safety lifestyle so you can live healthier, wealthier, and happier, and most importantly, more successfully across all aspects of your life. So today's topic is about buying a safe car. Now, as you can tell, I'm sitting in my car. Well, this happens to be one of my favorite places. I am a car enthusiast for sure, but probably not for the reasons that you would suspect. Now, there are car enthusiasts for sports cars and for cars that are fuel efficient and SUVs and pickup trucks and things like that. That's not the thing that I'm fascinated with when it comes to cars. When it comes to cars, I am fascinated with safety technology. There is a tremendous amount of safety technology that is available in a modern automobile. And this talk today is about what to look for in order to buy a safe car so that it can protect you in an accident and help you from getting into an accident in the first place. Now, a good place to start here would be to look at some basic accident statistics. Now, these are not exact numbers and it depends on the source, but roughly speaking, there are about 6 million car accidents in the United States every year. Now, if you stop and think about that for a second, and in terms of your safety, that means about 2% of the population every year is involved in a car accident. So over a lifetime, you have a very, very high likelihood of being involved in a car accident. Now, of those 6 million accidents, about half of them result in some type of injury. So roughly 3 million injuries. And to make matters worse, the United States sees about 40,000 deaths each year resulting from car accidents. So you have a very, very high likelihood over your lifetime of getting hurt in the very thing that you depend on every day to get to work, to go to school, to go grocery shopping, to go on vacation, all those kinds of things. Cars are such an integral part of our life today. Now, so that's kind of the numbers, the statistics on it. Even more staggering is the huge financial burden that car accidents place on the U.S. economy. There are some estimates that could put the dollar value of car accidents as high as approaching $1 trillion. Now think about that, $1 trillion spread out over every U.S. citizen. That's a lot of money per person. And so this talk today is about getting a handle on the types of technologies that are available in a car to help you not be part of contributing to that cost. I want to keep you out of an accident, and I want to most importantly keep you safe if you do get into an accident. And speaking of the numbers, if someone dies in a car accident, the cost of a human life in a car accident can approach on average about $6 million per life. And that's with all the lawsuits, that's the cost on the economy, lost wages, hospitalizations, all these kinds of things add up. So there are a lot of reasons to be enthusiastic about safety technology in a car. We use our cars every day. Most of us drive in a car on a daily basis. Our kids, our families, our spouses, it's just an integral part of everyday life. It's something that we interact with on a daily basis. Cars are inherently dangerous. They are massive vehicles typically. They have a lot of power. When they get up to speed, they carry a lot of momentum and a lot of kinetic energy. And you need to kind of think about these things when you're getting into a car and realize the massive amount of energy that you are controlling and have at your disposal. Now, let's just recap a little bit about what safety is. Safety is about prevention and about survival. So in a car accident, or when you're driving a car, you either want to prevent an accident from happening in the first place, and if you do get into an accident, you want to do everything you possibly can in order to survive that accident that you've been in. So I'm going to start telling you what not to look for when you buy a car. That's the first place to start, is what don't you look for? What should you avoid as your priorities when you're contemplating buying a new or a used car for that matter. For starters, I would avoid looking at the horsepower ratings on a car. A lot of car enthusiasts, they like a powerful vehicle. Well, a powerful vehicle with a lot of horsepower usually translates into something that is going to give you the impulse or the urge to drive aggressively. So if you've ever sat behind the wheel of a sports car, like I love a Corvette or a Porsche 911, those vehicles will compel you to drive fast. You cannot sit in a Corvette and not want to drive that car fast. So, and even today's larger SUVs and some larger luxury sedans, they have massive engines and they can go very, very fast in very short time. And you know the old saying, speed kills? Well, that is very, very true in an automobile accident. If you are tending towards driving fast, you are more likely to get killed in a car accident if you're driving faster. The faster you go, the injury and death rate rises exponentially, sometimes geometrically. It just goes through the roof. Now, another thing not to look for in a car exclusively is fuel economy. Now, I am an environmental enthusiast too, and I think that we are stewards of our planet, and that's a very important thing to consider. But when it comes to your safety and the safety of your loved ones, focusing on fuel economy alone in a vehicle is not the thing to focus on. And the reason is that fuel-efficient vehicles, especially some of the modern hybrid vehicles, they are optimized for fuel efficiency. And these vehicles tend to be lighter, they're constructed thinner. Even if you just look at the glass on the side windows of a hybrid vehicle, you'll find they're extremely thin, very easy to break through, and these cars are just light. They get tossed around in a severe accident pretty badly, and you're really just kind of taking your chances if that's the kind of vehicle that you end up in, and you're focusing exclusively on fuel economy. Now, another thing not to look for is the size of the vehicle. And what do I mean by that? So size does matter in a car accident, and it is no secret that SUVs and larger vehicles, the occupants of those vehicles tend to fare better, especially in multi-vehicle accidents. Smaller cars don't fare so well, especially when they go toe-to-toe with a much larger vehicle. So you can imagine a little compact car being in an accident, say a head-on collision with a full-size SUV or with a large sedan, pickup truck, and then of course much larger vehicles like semi-trailers and dump trucks and things like that. You're not going to do well in a small vehicle. And a lot of times people think, well, I want a small car, they're easier to drive, they're easier to handle, it's easier to park in my garage. If you're thinking about your safety, I would not focus on getting a small vehicle just for the sake of getting a small vehicle. There are many, many better choices out there when it comes to the size of your vehicle. At a minimum, I would be looking at a mid-sized vehicle to something along the SUV lines, or a crossover vehicle, and I'll talk about that in a little bit. Lastly, the thing not to look for exclusively is crash test ratings. Now, most car crash tests are done with single vehicles. So if you say go and look on YouTube videos or the National Highway Transportation Safety Administration, look at what they offer as far as tests. A lot of times they're front collisions, they're offset collisions, they're side impact collisions, that type of a thing. Now, a small vehicle may have a very good crash test rating, but when that vehicle is tested against itself, so for example, a small vehicle interacting with, say, a solid brick wall, that car may very well do well under those conditions, but better than 50% of car accidents involve multi-car collisions. And so typically if you're in a super compact car that maybe has good crash ratings in and of itself, it may not fare so well when you go up against a much larger vehicle that happens to be also moving in the opposite direction of you. So again, think energy dissipation. A large vehicle going into a small vehicle, the smaller vehicle is going to absorb all the energy of the larger vehicle, and it's actually going to end up protecting the occupants of the larger vehicle. in that situation. So I am not a big fan of fuel efficient cars for the sake of fuel efficiency, or compact cars for the sake of having a small car. So those are kind of my 4 things that I would not look for if I was out shopping for a car right now, with the idea in mind of being safe, of protecting my life, of protecting my health, my welfare, my finances. That is the key of this talk, is the things that will help you maximize your health, your wealth, and your happiness, and your success. And I want to stress here again, if you can avoid getting hurt, if you can avoid incurring expenses and injuries, then you are going to be more successful in your life, because you're not going to spend as much, you're not going to deal with as much, you're not going to have all that stress to deal with. You're going to be in the workforce longer, as long as you're not injured or hurt or killed in something like a car accident. So that's why this is so very important when you're going car shopping. Now, we're going to shift gears a little bit here, and the question now is, so what should you look for in a car? When you're out buying a new car or a used car, a lot of people, they buy used cars, of course, to save money. But if you go too far in age on a used car, you could end up in a bad situation with a car that just is not going to fare well against a modern car. One of the first things that I look for when I go shopping for a car is, what is the fatality rate of that vehicle? And so I look for a vehicle with a 0 fatality rate, a car that has gone through a model year where no one has gotten killed in that car, or at least a very low fatality rate. Now, there are some vehicles that are very common vehicles that fall into these categories. There are certain model years of the Honda Odyssey, for example. My ride happens to be a Lexus RX 350. That's an entry-level crossover vehicle. There's the Toyota Sequoia. Those kind of vehicles, there are certain model years that have 0 fatality rates. Now, that's going to vary for the same model by year, because, well, maybe there were more severe accidents in a particular year. But there are some vehicles out there, and there's only a handful, that have a 0 fatality rate. Now, you can attribute that in some cases to, well, maybe these vehicles tend to be driven more conservatively. So, for example, a minivan may have a 0 fatality rate, but that may not necessarily be a function of the vehicle itself. It may be because it's driven conservatively. So minivans are often driven by, the soccer moms, and they will drive slower because they're carting around kids. They want to be careful. They're not going to drive that minivan as aggressively as, say, some type of a sports car. However, that said, there's a lot to be considered when you're looking at a vehicle and you say, this car has a 0 fatality rate. No one has gotten killed in this particular car for that particular model year. So when I look for a car, this is one of the reasons why I picked the car that I drive. In fact, my wife and I both drive the same type of vehicle. They're both Lexus RX 350s. And again, you don't have to spend a super lot of money to get a car with a 0 or low fatality rate. There are offerings from Toyota and things like that. And the Lexus line happens to have particularly good crash test ratings in many of its products. And a lot of times a low-end Lexus vehicle like what I have is just a little bit more than its Toyota counterpart. So that's why I kind of tend towards that brand. But there are many others to choose from, and you don't have to go the luxury route. Now, the next thing that I look for in buying a car for safety features is the number of airbags. Now, airbags are very, very important. You probably stand about a 15% greater likelihood of not getting killed in a vehicle that is equipped with airbags. Now, of course, that depends on the type of collision and where the occupants are sitting, how you're sitting in the car, and things like that. But generally speaking, airbags are good for you in a car accident. Now, of course, airbags are for survival once an accident has occurred. Now, there's some very particular things about airbags that you need to know. First of all, I like cars with side seat airbags, and there are very few manufacturers that offer rear seat side airbags. And the reason this is important to consider is that if you have children or carry passengers routinely in the back seat of your car, then I would tend to always want to get a vehicle that has rear seat side airbags to protect those rear occupants. Very few cars have that. Again, a lot of the Lexus and Toyota offerings, they actually do have those type of airbags in the vehicles. Now let's kind of start from the front. Most cars today, all cars have front airbags. These are the airbags that are in the dashboard. They will deploy and protect you in a head-on collision. Most cars also have side curtain airbags. These are the curtain airbags that deploy all around the vehicle and provide some sense of protection against side collisions and in some cases rollover situations. Some cars also have the front seat side airbags, which will provide further torso and lower body protection during a side impact. And there are some vehicles now that even have knee airbags for the driver and in some cases the passenger sitting in the front of the vehicle. So if you're looking at a used car, be careful, because a lot of vehicles, say, that are 15 years old, it might be a perfectly good functioning car as far as getting you from point A to point B, but a lot of times these vehicles don't have this level of airbag technology in them. And airbags are your number one defense against a car accident, and they will help you survive should an accident occur. Now, another big thing is anti-lock brakes. Now, anti-lock brake technology has been attributed to really reducing the injury and reducing the likelihood of getting into a car accident. That's because anti-lock brakes really take a lot of the guesswork out of coming to a quick stop as efficiently as possible when you're riding on slippery surfaces like wet roads and icy roads and things like that. There's a lot of brains behind that technology. It's all done in software and sensors and things like that. And so the reason this is important, again, is if you buy an older car, there are many older cars that do not have anti-lock brake technology in them. Certainly an antique car or any offering like that, a lot of older pickup trucks, those cars will not have anti-lock brakes in them. And I would not even get into a vehicle that did not have anti-lock brakes. Now, the next level of technology that I would look for is electronic stability control. Now, electronic stability control, again, it's a computer program that runs in the background, and it monitors wheel slippage and the angle of the steering wheel and how hard you're braking and where you're pointed and things like that. Now, I can tell you through personal experience, I had a vehicle that had a tremendous traction control system in it, and I took that car out into a icy parking lot, snow-covered parking lot, and no matter how hard I tried, I could not get that car to spin out of control. And so I've proven that to myself, that this technology works. You would have to go so far beyond the limits of normal driving to purposely lose control of a vehicle that has stability control. That's how well these systems work. In other words, if you go into an icy parking lot and you have the stability control system on, there is no way that you're going to do donuts or spin that car out or do anything like that. It is just practically impossible to outsmart that system. So very, very important for keeping your vehicle out of an accident. It's a very, very strong preventative measure when it comes to automotive technology. Now, another favorite of mine is the backup camera and the rear cross traffic warning systems. Now, the backup camera is your friend when you're backing out of a garage or you're backing up in a parking space or any situation like that where you've got blind spots in your back. Now, the key here with backup cameras is that you cannot solely rely on it. Backup cameras are there to augment the field of view that you would otherwise not be able to see. It's, in other words, that space right behind your back bumper and several feet beyond that. But backup cameras are tremendous in helping to identify when you couple it with looking around and being responsible in that sense. It provides a tremendous buffer for you to avoid hitting something that's behind you that you may not otherwise be able to see. And think about it, even in a parking situation where there may not be somebody behind you, but it allows you to maneuver into a parking spot without having to worry about actually hitting the vehicle that's behind you, because you could actually physically see it in the camera. Now, another technology that I would not buy a car without is all-wheel drive. Now, all-wheel drive is one of those gray areas as far as what I call safety technology in a car. And the reason is that all-wheel drive is great even in dry weather. So if you're, say, driving on the road and you have to accelerate very quickly to avoid an accident, if you're driving just a front-wheel drive car that, say, does not have traction control, you're going to get a little bit of wheel slippage with that type of a vehicle. And in an all-wheel drive car, you will almost never experience any kind of wheel slippage. We've been driving our RX vehicles for many years, and I can tell you with certainty that in most rain and ice and snow situations, there is little to no wheel slippage that you will encounter. And that's really important. If you're trying to get out of a situation where you need to move very quickly, you don't want your wheel spinning out on you. Now, this is more important in winter climates where you're going to be prone to a lot of snow. I happen to live in Ohio, so of course we get a lot of rough winters. We get a lot of nuisance snow that hangs around a lot. So that type of technology, I feel it every day when I drive my car. I feel the benefit of that technology working for me. Now, while we're on the subject of all-wheel drive, what is it that makes contact with the road? What is the thing that's physically making contact with the road? And that's your tires. So the next thing that I would look for in a car, this is not the kind of thing that, say, would come with a car, but I would not drive a car unless properly equipped with the right seasonal tires. I am not a fan of all-season tires. All-season tires tend to be a compromise. They compromise summer driving when it's warm and you want the benefit of tacky tires helping you stick to the road. All-season tires are certainly a compromise in the winter. They are not going to give you the best traction, especially if you're prone to areas that tend to have a lot of wintry, slushy, wet weather. So I run snow tires in the winter on all my vehicles all the time. I've done it for years. And again, this is one of those things you got to kind of go out there in a parking lot and test it and prove it to yourself. Snow tires, especially good snow tires, work. I like the Blizzak brand. They make a tremendous winter tire. And it's interesting that my experience with snow tires has been they certainly help with traction and with getting your vehicle to accelerate. Where I've seen the most benefit with snow tires actually is in the braking ability of the car and the maneuverability. Snow tires will help bring you to a stop much more efficiently than all-season tires. And I would certainly never ever drive summer tires in a winter setting. You're just asking for trouble. Summer tires are notoriously slippery. Now, this is very important, especially on sports cars. Sports cars tend to have wider tires. Wide summer tires, it's like trying to ride a toboggan on the snow. And of course, toboggans are made to go in the snow. They are not meant to stop. They are meant to go. And if you stop and think about it, sports cars without winter tires in the winter is a very, very bad mix. So these are the kind of things that I would predominantly look for if I was purchasing certainly a new car. I wouldn't touch a new car without these technologies in it. These are the basic technologies, and I would be very particular in looking at a used vehicle to make sure that they have at least some, if not all or most of these types of technologies in them. And again, you want to look for a vehicle with a low or a zero fatality rate. You want to look for a car with a lot of airbags. Those are going to be your two best friends. And like I said earlier, Don't rely just on crash tests, because you could have a little compact car that's going to do well all by itself, but if you couple that car against a larger SUV or a truck or something like that, you are not going to do well in that accident, no matter how good those crash test results are. So this was actually part one of this talk today. The next part is going to be about what I call advanced safety technology in a car, and I'll be posting that soon. That one is really out there because there is some amazing technology out there that is found in a lot of vehicles that are available today. So as always, don't forget to check out my website and my blog. I've got a bunch of essays on my website that you will find very interesting and very practical advice. And of course, check out my YouTube channel and my videos. And most importantly, check out my book, Unsafe: Why Smart People Make Unsafe Decisions and How to Prevent Them. And this talk is part of that. How do you make a good decision when you're buying a car? So I wish you folks well in your driving experience. Remember, drive safe. Don't speed. Don't drive recklessly. Don't drink and drive. Don't do any of those crazy things. It's not going to end well for you in a car accident. So until we get to part two, I bid you farewell. And folks, as always, think safe, act safe, and you will be safe.